Hello and welcome to Metawatch for the 22nd of September. I'm going to be talking through UK events, some upcoming UK events, talk about the wider meta win rates, some of the overperforming teams and underperforming teams, before getting into a special reward for any subscribers with a tactical tip and answering a Patreon priority question. So with all that said, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Killteam 40k YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm here to help give you the tips and tricks that elevate every part of your Killteam experience. So no matter if you're a casual or a competitive player, there should be something here for you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. You can join the Patreon, where you get access to members only Discord, Patreon priority questions, early access to content, exclusive content, and tournament awards. Or if you find yourself buying Killteam goodies or hobby supplies, you can use one of our affiliate links in the description below, or discount codes with Crossfire Games and GG Prints. We're always keen to hear your thoughts and feedback, so don't leave that comment box empty. Let us know what you think. Once again, thanks for your support, and with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm doing a slightly different kind of setup here. As you can see, I've actually got the screen where that way. Okay, I'm not used to doing this on the other side of the screen here. So I'm going to try and use that as a bit more a visual cue for you guys, and hopefully you find it useful to be able to see what's going on out and about. So that's the idea of it. Let me know if you like it or if you don't like it, and I will try and keep it going in future. But we're going to start with the UK event to recap. So one of these events is actually a ongoing league. So there was 3 events that I have to cover: the Doon Hammer Open up in Scotland, Operation Oatcake by Stoke, and Pendulum Gaming out in where was that? Over here somewhere. So yeah, so I'll talk through all of those now and give you a bit of a run through of those events and talk about it. So we'll start with the Doon Hammer Open, which is a 4-round event with 15 players, and this is the top listings, as you can see. So we'll start with just talking about the top 3 as we usually do. So I assume this is Pieter van der Waal, hope I said that correctly. Running Goremongers, and a really awesome performance here. So 21, 20, 18 and 20. Now I'm going to make the assumption that this is run still on the old TAC ops, because partly we see some really strong scores here, which for me means that it was probably being run on the old TAC ops, because I think we'll see that generically those scores are coming down under the new approved ops. So I might be wrong, but if it wasn't the new stuff, that'd be cool. But I'm going to guess it was on the old. But running Goremongers, so a really consistent performance here. 4 wins, 21, 20, 18 and 20 again. So only really dropping, what's that, 3, 4, 5 points over the whole of the tournament, which is a really impressive performance with Goremongers. I think Goremongers are in an interesting place. So if we go to win rates, we can have a quick look, because this is like the bit that I find interesting with Goremongers. I've probably gone past them already. Where are they hiding? Goremongers, all the way down here at 44%, right? So huge player base, 500 games played, loads of people pick up and playing with them, but only on a 44% win rate, which is pretty wild. And then if we go to sort of how they rank going through this, I should say, by the way, potentialsplatterops.com, this is the analytics and stuff, which is done by Smiles, Eyes and Gunfire. So thank you very much for him for providing all of this, which is how we can actually get a bit more of an in-depth look at what's going on in the meta. So huge number of people playing this team, and as a result, they're not necessarily doing too well. So as a placing rate, only on 6.85% and only on a 44% win rate. But you can see when played correctly, or played with top level players, that they can perform really well. Now I think for me, part of this is to do with the fact that they have what I find to be a really polarizing meta, right? So I find personally, if I'm going against Goremongers, the ability to double fight and double shoot, predominantly double shoot with a reliability of doing like 6 damage per shoot action, means that you can, I think, play into Goremongers really effectively. But if you don't have access to that, I think the game becomes so much harder, particularly if you're locked into, like, say, a particular style of gameplay, and you don't have the ability to flex damage in 2 different means, right? So you want to be able to chip these guys down, get them to a point where actually you can get over that damage reduction in melee and then kill them. And if you're if your faction doesn't have access to that, then that can be really, really difficult. I know there's a whole different ways of playing Goremongers. I know there's sort of the cagey play where people have been running with plant beacons and that sort of stuff, doing a positional game. And there's been a way more aggressive game where people try to like move forwards as fast as they can and get in your face. Now, I think TP1, that's going to be exceptionally difficult to do now because essentially you're not going to be able to have that scouting dash and that sort of thing. So I think that TP1 aggressive play is probably going to go away, but I think the new tac ops for Seek and Destroy is going to favour a TP2 and TP3 like very aggressive play by Goremongers, because you can potentially be charged. Well, you can very, very easily on most maps get to within 6 inches of your opponent's drop zone, and be scoring route, I think, quite consistently. And the fact that you can do that potentially with a single model with a double fight and this sort of thing, or a strat phase, get a charge off, then fight, and then move off and do something else, or use your aspirant's chain ability to move between people, I think makes route way more achievable for this team, which means actually for attack ops that they're going to be in a strong place. Now, equally, I think what's interesting with Goremongers is that they can also play like the recon game pretty well with flank and that sort of stuff if they want to be aggressive and push into your opponent's half. So I don't think retrieval is as good for them. I might be wrong. I think the way I'm looking at Goremongers is that they're going to get pushed way more into that corn style of gameplay. I think that would be the strongest for them, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of the Goremonger players are looking at this and they're thinking, actually, with like a slower play game, I can do really, really well, and therefore I'm going to use like Dominate or something like this and just rack up the points in the end game. So, what are you Goremongers players thinking? I feel it favours an aggressive Goremongers play. But congratulations, Pieter, for your win. Next in second place is Fraser Hogg with the Brew Brothers. A single loss here, but again some really consistent scores: 17, 10, 20, and 17. So I mean, also like all three of the Iron Bruisers. So as a team, they're doing pretty well at these events. But Brew Brothers, I think, are in a great place, right? So we know they're one of the strongest of the Horde teams, I believe. So I think they're doing well. I think they're going to continue to do well, and I'm interested to see how they continue to perform, really, because so there's some interesting stuff in the meta right now where I think Goremongers like this matchup. I think Canoptic Circle might struggle in this matchup not because they Brew Brothers are going to kill them or anything like that. I don't think Brew Brothers are going to kill them at all. But I think that Canoptic Circle might struggle to kill the Brew Brothers. I might be wrong. Maybe the Warriors with Piercing 1 and the Bolt Guns actually have enough. I mean, obviously the Spiders and the Geomancer are going to kill stuff. But it's how you kill enough of them efficiently enough and effectively enough when this team can be scoring, I think, really consistently tac ops with security and that sort of stuff now. So that'll be interesting. And then a second Fraser Hunter with Sanctifiers, also going 3-1, 19, 5, 17, and 20. So again, another really strong performance here from Sanctifiers, and not surprising to me. So again, I think these two teams will be the Horde picks most likely. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think we'll continue to see these two performing well, particularly with the way Envoy works and the ability for them to move quite so fast during their turn. So the fact that they can do that lead to possession, these guys can do the after activation dash, just means that they can get the distance, keep their Envoy safe, and then suddenly be scoring those tackles really effectively. So you have to put a lot of pressure onto these teams for them to be able to not score that tac op. And if they feel that they can't keep them safe, they always have other options as well with something else to run. So that's a Doon Hammer Open. Congratulations again to all three of those players for a strong performance. We'll go into KTS Operation Oatcake. This is a 3-round event with 14 players, and the top 3 are all undefeated. So we'll run through those now. So David Law running his Blades of Khaine. Again, pretty solid scores here. 20-19-19. That's pretty consistent as it gets. Only dropping 2, 4, 5 points. Dropping 5 points with Blades of Khaine. And I think Blades of Khaine, and I've said this for a while, I think they're still going to be doing pretty well. I am a bit concerned as to how they have the damage output to take on something like Canoptic Circle. And I guess my concern with it is if you only have 8 models, so the fact that Canoptic Circle struggle to kill more than 2 to 3 a turn, is less of a problem in this sense, right? Because each of these guys are so important that you really need it to go well. I think the way that they do it, like, are you running all banshees? Like, I think you might be running all banshees and just trying to like hit, move away, kill stuff, stun people, and do that kind of thing. But maybe that's a bad idea. I'm not too sure, but at least I think Blades of Khaine can play the tack-up game well against them, because I think Retrieval's a solid option for them there. I wouldn't be running Seek and Destroy personally, because I just think it's just going to go wrong, because I think against any of these teams that are just so durable, Seek and Destroy is really going to struggle. But yeah, so I think Blades of Khaine are going to continue to perform well. I'll have a quick look at where they are with win rates, because I'm pretty sure they're up near the top. So rankings-wise, Blades of Khaine are in 5th, which is basically to do with the fact that they have such a strong placing rate, and their win rate is really high as well, and a huge player base. So really popular team, performing pretty consistently well at all levels, and placing well as well. So I think this is a team to watch, because I think Void Dancers are going to, well, obviously they're going to fall off post-November, but I think a lot of the Void Dancer players that are enjoying Void Dancers can make a very natural progression to Blades of Khaine, and play a very similar game, with, you know, with a few tweaks to their game plan probably. So yeah, so that's Blades of Khaine. Next up is Deathwatch. John Gilchrist, I want to say that's it, from Deadwood, running Deathwatch, going 17, 19, and 21. Undefeated with Deathwatch is awesome to see. I mean, I was expecting to see Deathwatch doing quite well, and I'm going to steal a little bit of the sandwiches from later, sorry, and just talk briefly about win rates for Deathwatch. So my prediction was somewhat correct. So last week, Deathwatch were up at 65%, which I said was probably an anomaly a little bit, because they're a new team, people are trying to figure them out. They're quite an easy team for you to learn yourself, and you can be caught out quite easily by them if you didn't know that they can, like, for a CP, change their order and counteract, or ignore obscurity and this sort of stuff. So we've seen quite a significant drop here, down to 56%, sort of straight away, as people have probably adjusted and sort of like understood now what Deathwatch are doing. Additionally to that, I think there's going to be a lot of new players picking up this team that are going to be running with it. So I think for them, like, that also might bring this down as an average. But there should be an easy team to play, right? So it shouldn't penalise new players at all by picking up this team. So I feel like they're probably about right now, and I don't think they'll move too much. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. So they've had about a 10% drop already. I think they'll stay about 55. That's sort of like maybe just too high above this threshold line, but actually probably where they should be. So yeah, congratulations on the Deathwatch win. And then I mean, some of these people, I'm going to butcher their name, I'm really sorry, but I want to say it's Jackek. I want to say Jackek with running Phobos, and it's annoying because I absolutely love Phobos. So I want to say a big congratulations. So 3 wins, undefeated. I think this would have been like an interesting final round, right? Because I think these two teams are like quite good into each other in different ways, but probably favoured for Blades of Khaine. I think if you play the Blades of Khaine correctly, I think you can outrange a Deathwatch and just be mean to them basically by doing damage, getting stuck in melee, and not necessarily dying too easily to them. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but that's how it feels to me in that matchup. And then the Phobos and Battleclade sort of matchup here, I think probably Phobos have that from my opinions, but yeah. So great to see that Phobos doing well. Probably on our last couple of outings before they disappear into the declassified meta. But you know, it's an interesting one for Phobos, because in the next few months they're now going to go recon and infiltrate. And I'm trying to think like what tack ups you want to play with them, because it feels very, very different to me. But I feel like Retrieval's actually quite good for them, because like the Reavers can just go and take objectives, and you can now like play an even more cautious game you did before, but move up late game and take with the terror like ability, take that home objective, and sort of run away with it. So I feel like that's like they're probably going to be in a good spot for these next couple of months. That being said, I feel like they are still completely unreliable. So although you can play a more defensive cagey game than you did previously, which is probably useful, I do wonder like how you deal with things like Deathwatch just running at you, because if you whiff like any of those key engagements, and like you need like there'll be multiple of them, the Deathwatch player will just melt you, and so the fact that they can do that and heal, like I think it's very reasonable for a Deathwatch player to get a double kill against Phobos, and very unlikely for Phobos to get a double kill against Deathwatch. Like I almost can't see it happening unless there's already some weakened people or something like this. So yeah, I just feel like that matchup would be wild with the lack of reliability Phobos have now, because before you essentially go up, double tap them with like a bolt pistol, piercing one with balance, that sort of stuff, and then do the critical shots to just give you the edge to hopefully kill them. But I just don't think you can do that now. So that's top three from Operation Oatcake. And then finally into Pendulum Gaming, and it's their inaugural Killteam Monthly Assault. 3 rounds, 6 players, so a small event, but just a few things I want to touch on. So in first place is Samuel Hudson running Void Dancer Troupe, so great to see Void Dancers continuing their sort of domination of win rates. In second place is Jim Taylor Bull with Deathwatch. We've already talked about Deathwatch quite a lot. And in third place is Ryan Hudson with his Tempest Aquilans, doing well as well. So last week we talked about Tempest Aquilans. I don't want to talk too much about them, but what I am going to do is talk about Void Dancer Troupe, and I'm going to go into the wider meta win rate discussion and talk about them there. So congratulations to all 3 of you for your performances, getting all undefeated, but all also collecting some draws along the way. Okay, so upcoming UK events. So just for people's awareness, that's how I can sort of see where these events are. So if you see a ping near you, then there's events happening near you. And then onto talkify.com/Killteam events pinboard, you can see all of the events that are listed on here, and all the TOs in the UK are now pretty much that we're aware of on the same WhatsApp group, and like adding to this list, which is awesome to see. And you can do it by various ways. You can have an agenda which just gives you a list chronologically of events, and you can obviously just go into loading more events. It will show you all the ones all the way down, or you can do like a monthly one where it shows you like a calendar view, and you can then change your months as you go. But the pinboard's quite nice and easy. You can just click on any of these, and it'll take you through to the event. So I don't know if you want to do this, it'll take to BCP and say, yep, this is your event. You can buy tickets here and do that, right? So nice and easy to do. But I'll just talk about some of the events that are coming up. So obviously the big one for us is next weekend is this London Grand Tournament. I believe that they're up to like 90 something players now. Let's have a quick look see. It says 95, so they have 5 tickets remaining. So that's quite a lot of players, and it's on track to be one of the largest in the UK. Largest independent events in the UK. So if you're looking to try and get a ticket, you've got like not very long to buy one as it's this coming weekend, and there's only 5 tickets left. So you can do that. Now I think you have to go into the UKTC website to be able to buy one of those tickets. But anyway, so yeah, you've got that going on in the background. You also have Not to Kill Team running there into the Tomb World event, which is essentially like an introduction to the new rule set, which is pretty cool. That means that new players who maybe haven't necessarily played the new rules or had a chance to play them yet get an opportunity to get involved and do that. Then the following weekend you have the Yorkshire Killteam Fortune Fire event, which is the singles event that is going on alongside the teams event that's happening concurrently. So the idea is they want to try and get as many people involved as possible, and because you're having a teams event, there's some people that will end up missing out. So they're running this alongside. Then you have Cambridge running their Killteam event at Oktoberfest on the 11th. Brighton Battlegrounds on the 18th. Sunday 19th is a Not to Kill Team skirmish. We're up to 25th is the Fright Night with Yorkshire Kill Team. Then we have the 8th Norwich Kill Team Autumn Tournament. By the way, if you guys haven't been to Norwich, like I highly recommend it. I had so much fun going to this event. I mean, all these guys are great, but the scene down there is being run really well, and they threw in some like different terrain maps and that sort of stuff, which is just great fun. And then into the team tournament for the ITT. Then we have, where else were we at? I missed out on Killteam on the 15th, Yorkshire Killteam on the 29th again, and then the Invitational for Lincoln Killteam on the 30th. So those are all the events. As I said, you can just click on any of those and it will take you through. It tells you where they are with the locations, how many rounds it is and that sort of stuff, and what it's for. So I highly recommend that you check out talkify.com Killteam events pinboard. So that is the upcoming UK events. So now I'm going to talk about wider meta win rates. So we're going to talk just through overperforming teams, underperforming teams. I'm just going to just go through some of the stats and just kind of like pick out a few things that I think is worthy of talking about. So last week we talked about Hearthkyn and Gellerpox. They haven't really changed much, right? So they're doing consistently well, 60% for Hearthkyn and Gellerpox on 59%. Now the one I am going to talk about is Hierotek Circle, 58%, because I think one of the best Spanish players that I know is a guy called Alex, who goes by Netra. I got to play him at both the World Championships Warhammer last year and at WTC, and he made a really interesting comment on one of my previous videos. I want to say it's the WTC Captains video, where essentially, because Bart and I were discussing our perceptions of the meta, right? So we went to this team event, all of us taking what we think are really strong teams. I believe that Hierotek are really strong. Well, in fact, I think the UK meta believes that the Hierotek Circle are really strong. But actually, it seems that the Spanish don't believe so, right? I think that's really like interesting, like just discussion point, because essentially we have these different perceptions, and there's so many reasons why we have these perceptions. Like, one is the terrain you use, one is like what players pick up what teams. Like, so for instance, I think Hierotek have some teams that they struggle into. They don't really like. I don't think they like elven teams too much. Like the sort of the speedy blades of Khaine and that sort of stuff can do quite well against them, because they're like a similar activation count. So you can do well, and then with the fact that you have sort of access to easy power weapons means you can potentially two-hit quite quickly and quite easily, and just kill them in melee before they really pick up their pace. And you combine that with, you know, like favorable maps or that sort of stuff, and suddenly they're not performing very well. But in the UK, we think they're one of the best teams, and at the moment they're doing pretty well. So they're on a 58% win rate. They're pretty popular with like 400 games played, and we can actually have a look at their rankings and placing data as well. So Hierotek Circle have an average player placing rate, so that means that essentially, like with this many people playing them, you would expect there to be slightly more, or not slightly more. Sorry, this is the right amount, right? If they were a really strong team like Void Dancers, this means that people are winning with them more often than not. So the stats somewhat, I think, like agree with what the Spanish perception is, right? Because essentially they're doing pretty well in most of their games, but actually they're not winning that many events. Now, I think, well, my perception is it's a play style thing with Hierotek, and they're difficult to figure out. But once you figure them out, they can be like really strong. And the way they interact with like Kill Op, and I think the way they're going to interact with the new Tac Ops, I think it's going to put them in a really strong place. Because we talked about, so generically, like I personally don't rate Martyrs, but I know some people do, so that's just a personal thing. But you know, that's each is entitled to their own opinion. But I think Hierotek can play Martyrs actually better than most teams, because if they die on an objective, they can still come back to life, so they're not necessarily completely lost their model, and they have a ploy to be able to control a marker or a counter after they die, right? So let's say that they die on a center objective, they can then spend a CP and they can convert that to VP by having a model that's not there count as being there for Martyrs, which is already really strong, and potentially means that they can net 2 VP if you're not careful. So you have to then move models onto this like objective where you don't necessarily want to be to then interact with them, and that works well for Hierotek because the more interactions you have early on, the stronger they are in a sense that they want you to start a trading game, right? Whereas I think the way you win versus Hierotek, in my opinion, is you don't win on kill up. They're gonna do okay on crit up most of the time. So the way you win is by denying them tack up and trying to score your own tack ups. So I just thought it's like a really interesting discussion point that the data, I think, supports the Spanish thinking, and I completely understand why they think the way, like why Alex would say that, right? Like they see things in their meta, and we see things in our meta, and part of that for us is shaped by having really strong players running them, running these teams. And I just think looking ahead, I think the bits that I think make Hierotek strong are going to get stronger for them. So I think denying their tack ops is going to get harder because Envoy for them with access to teleport and that sort of stuff is now going to be stronger. They can move people around the map relatively safely to where they need to go. I think equally that they can play. I don't think they play retrieval too well, but like it's not terrible for them. I personally wouldn't want to be using my APL like that, but if you're in a win more scenario, they can definitely do it on TP4 relatively easily with their APL. It's not like beacons where it costs you 6; it's only costing you 3. And as I said, equally they have access to other good options that they can plant banner if they can access a particular, let's say, height or vantage, and they can teleport someone to that, and they can slow people down from reaching it by putting down the nanomine and this sort of stuff, right? So with a combination of abilities, banner becomes really hard for you to be able to get to, because if you put it on a high vantage where you've teleported to, so you've ignored the movement restrictions to get there, and then you put down a nanomine, that is just like even Goremongers are going to struggle to have the movement to be able to reach it. So I think those sorts of techniques and tactics are going to be like really effective for Hierotek to score well on tack ops. And it's not like only one of their tack ops is good, right? So they have that flexibility to potentially adjust and move around. So a really good win rate, 58% win rate, placing rate less than what I would expect to see, but tracks. And I think they're going to be a really strong contender going into the new approved docs, but maybe I'm wrong. Sanctifiers I talked about last week on a sort of 57.7, 58% win rate, and then Void Dancers I want to touch on now because I thought it'd be good. So they're still in a great place, right? So Void Dancers are a popular team. They got a lot of games with them, so that they're being played a lot with a pretty high win rate. And the bit that I thought was interesting is if you go into like rankings and you look at what team is like on top right now, it's Void Dancers, right? So what this is placing rate is essentially it's based on how many people are playing these games, how many trophies that the team is picking up, essentially, like or top placements. So the potential for trophies maybe is a better way of describing it. So the fact that these two together are like really high is a good indication that this is a very strong team. And I think that into elites and those kind of matchups, I think Void Dancers can do really well. I think they do have a few bad matchups, but they're not popular in the meta at the moment. So I personally think they don't do great into Felgor. I don't think they love Goremongers too much. I think that becomes a really like dicey matchup where like Goremongers can very easily double kill Void Dancers. Void Dancers really struggle to double kill Goremongers. And you usually have like these core abilities, a murderous entrance, the ability to do the fight, fall back, and then shoot. They can do this to be able to reliably kill 2 Goremongers a turn, but then they sort of run out of steam. So the fact that the Goremongers are probably getting beaten up by a lot of elites on the way is good for them. I also think like Chaos Cult's great into Void Dance as well. But anyway, the point being is those teams seem to be way less popular or not making it as much as the teams that they do enjoy fighting. So they do enjoy going against your Hunterclades, your Hieroteks, your Blades of Khaine, Warp Coven as well. Actually, that's a favourable matchup for them as well, I believe. So like, I think they enjoy all those matchups, and so that's probably why we're seeing such good success with them. Additionally, with Deathwatch now, it's going to become, I think, really popular. I mean, look, we're already up to like 100 odd events. which, you know, Gellerbock's been out all season. These guys have been out for like a week. So we're seeing them shoot up quite quickly. I think that's a fantastic matchup for Void Dancer into Deathwatch, because they have the killing potential just to, in a single activation, kill Deathwatch, and you only need to do that like twice, like a turning point, and you've crippled the team. Once turning point, you've crippled the team. So the fact that this team is going to be really popular, I think, is going to do really good for them. Now, the unknown for me is how are they going to do versus Canoptic Circle, and I honestly don't know. I think that they are going to struggle to kill any of the big bugs if they're positioned correctly. The combination of just a scratch, like damage reduction, all that sort of stuff, ceaseless defense saves, blah 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 blah. I think this means that they're not going to be able to kill the big bugs or the Geomancer. But I wonder if that's like, if that matters or not. So like, I genuinely don't know. Can they just get around by killing everyone else and just somehow scoring tack ups? But like, I'm trying to think what tack ups you take into the Canoptic that feels like it's in a good place. So, what's the, like, if you're a Void Dancer player right now, what's your thought process on Canoptic Circle? Like, how are you going to get around that? Because I don't think you'll do well on kill up. They're probably going to go up against you on kill up, it feels. So how are you going to beat them on crit and tack up? Like, that's kind of the question, I guess. But Canoptic just feel like they're in a really strong place at the moment. So that's the overperforming teams. So we'll jump down and we'll have a quick look at the underperforming teams. I don't want to linger too much on these. I'm going to talk about some stuff just above it. So Pathfinders, yep, they remain struggling at the bottoms. So did Kazakin. I've talked about that quite a lot. I think they just have some really bad matchups that are popular in the meta at the moment. Deathcore obviously remaining still down quite low. Again, not loads of games being played. Exaction, again, not much change from last week. And Hand the Archon, same sort of stuff. Now, interestingly, these teams don't seem to be being played too much in comparison to some of the other teams, and so therefore they sort of like stagnate down here. Now, the two things I did want to talk about though are Battleclade and Hearthkyn. So, Battleclade came out, and I think most people thought they were going to be kind of strong. They're going to be favourable into elites, but they will have a rougher time into teams that out-activate them. Generically, we're not seeing too many teams like the Horde teams. I think I guess there is Brood Brothers and Sanctifiers, but like they don't seem to be massively popular. It's not I wouldn't say a Horde meta. It feels much more like a elite elf 10-man team meta in a way, like, or sub 10-man team. It's what it feels. And therefore you'd think Battleclade will be doing well, but they just haven't seemed to like pick up the mantle that people, I think, initially thought they would have. And I'm trying to think, like, I don't really know why they're so poor. I don't know if it's like a lack of reliability, if it's just that the team is too complex. Is it the fact that they just struggle on tack ops? And one of the things going into a new approved ops for me with this team is I just think they're going to really struggle to do tack ops. Maybe that's me not understanding a team and not knowing it well enough. But that's kind of how it feels to me. Is like I think Battleclade will struggle in that respect. So down at 43.9, so call it 44%. I just feel like if we compare these two teams, like Goremongers and Battleclade, although they're on a similar like win percentage, I just feel like more people would have probably more success with Goremongers than with Battleclade. And I think going into the new edition, I see a path forward with Goremongers where they're going to be scoring tack ops quite easily. I just don't see the same for Battleclade. I know that they can do things like steal intelligence and that sort of stuff, but previously a lot of their like rerolls and reliability were being tied to the ability to plant beacons where you want them, and now you're going to have to kill the model first to get the item that you want to then pick up, and then it's not necessarily giving you the aura that you wanted to have. So yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to discuss Battleclade. And the other one that I think is being slept on is Hearthkyn. So down at a 44% win rate, like barely being played, only 86 games. It's really not very popular. But I was just like thinking about this as if we end up in a sort of Deathwatch and Canoptic meta, like this team's ability with grudge tokens, like stacks really well into those low low activation or low killing model teams, right? So I was thinking about how Dominate interacts with Grudge and how it's such a good counter, right? So if you're a team that's like, I want one model to kill lots of things, like Hearthkyn have an inbuilt faction rule, which is like basically I'm gonna make that really hard for you. And so I think this team is like, I think a little bit being slept on. Access to security and recon, and they've got good tac ops. They've got ways to score loads of different options in those tac ops, I believe. I think Plant Baron is good for them with the jetpack guy if the map is correct. They've got like recover items, or sorry, retrieval, it's called, new recover items and objectives, which I also think is probably quite good. And I think they can just play those really well. So I think Hearthkyn might be sneaky good. I think they're not being played barely at all at the moment, so people don't know what they can do. And I think that we'll see that change. If some good players pick this team up, we'll see this change. I think is my opinion. Maybe I'm being wrong. Maybe the 5-inch movement is just too harsh for the team. But I think they have ways to get around that. So my sort of prediction is when the top teams get nerfed, Hearthkyn could have a favourable outcome, whereas I think Battleclade need a buff before they're going to be good. Is my opinion. But what do you guys think? Have I got that wrong? Like, is there a Battleclade player out there that's like, nah, it's just noobs playing it. They need to know there's a strategy. If you get good with them, you can do it. Like, what's the strategy? Or, you know, am I being over generous to Hearthkyn here? Do I think that maybe they're performing, or that they could perform better than what they actually are? Okay, so that is the meta discussion, which I just thought would be interesting for people to talk about. So I'm now going to go into the subscriber benefit, which is a tactical tip. So if you haven't yet subscribed, thank you very much for watching. And this bit isn't for you because you haven't subscribed. But if you would like to support the channel just by hitting subscribe, you can also listen and get a little tactical tip, which I try to do every single week. And I've had a great suggestion of trying to compile them all into a video and put those on Patreon. So I will see if I can do some editing at some point and do that, or just rehash it into one go. We'll see what I can do. But I like the idea. Cool. So thank you for subscribing if you just subscribed, by the way. So tactical tip then. So I saw a comment the other day which was like, can you explain how to bait? And my tactical tip is that the majority of the time, trying to do a bait or baiting a model isn't worth it, right? So I think people used to have this sort of strategy of, I'm going to put a model out and I'm going to force you to come and interact with it, such that I can then kill a more important model in your team, or do something that means that I'm going to get some value out of it. The issue with the logic of baiting is it kind of made sense in the old edition when you didn't have kill op, in my opinion, right? So you have to be really careful now when you're trying to like bait models, that you're not giving away VP for kill op that you shouldn't be. Now, clearly, there are expendable models, right? And that sort of stuff that mean that you don't necessarily lose any VP. But my point being is that most of the time when people are doing it, they're using models that are they're not expendable, so therefore they're going to be giving VP to your opponent. And my concern is that for a lot of players, if you're now playing against like a team with Dominate, if you're playing against a team with like Route or something like this, and that model is positioned poorly, or in a way in which you're now potentially giving your opponent more VP, there's a chance that you give them a point for kill op, there's a chance that you give them a point for their tac op, and there's a chance that you also give them a point for their primary op. And my concern is, like, if you make this part of your core strategy and you're not 100% sure what you're doing with it, you're just giving away up to 3 VP for a kill, and that can be like game changing most of the time. You know, most people are willing to throw away a model for 3 VP. So just be careful, like, when you're trying to do a bait, because I don't necessarily think it's going to be worth it. The other thing that like a bait requires, right, is it kind of like has this like ego check moment where, like, for bait to work, you are basically saying, I know that, like, I am better than my opponent and they don't know that I'm going to do something, and they are therefore not good enough to be able to stop this outcome, right? I just think that's very risky. Like, I very, very rarely think that my opponent don't know. Like, what's going on, or don't recognize it as bait. Like I think like sure maybe like some of the beginner games you're going to get people out with like they charge out of the tunnel with a Ravener right into the open with the guy that you left there, and then you get to kill a Ravener and he traded a guardsman, right? Sure, maybe, but like I don't think good players are going to do that. So I think most of the time they're going to recognize it as bait, and therefore then just not going to engage with it, right? So like that's one risk, right? So one risk is like they just see it's bait and they go, yeah, I'm not going to do that. The other risk is that they then like find out they have a way to actually interact or take the bait, but have an ability or a method or something that means that then they don't lose anything as a result. So maybe in that example, you put a model out in the open to try and bait out a Ravener charge, and they go, okay, yeah, sure. They wait out to their last activation. It's the Venom Spitter dude. He shoots you and kills the guy, and then you then get one activation. You do some damage, and then on the counteract, he flips back to conceal and disappears. Right? Like that's a hypothetical thing that could happen. Or he waits until the very last activation game, counteracts, turns to engage, shoots you, and then you know the game ends or whatever, and you have one shot back at them. So my guess, like my concern is like when you're trying to do this bait, like you're relying on your opponent not spotting it as bait or not having a counter plan to it, right? And if you get either of those things wrong, then you're potentially just giving your opponent like up to 3 VP for this bait that you've given. So, with all that said, and like as I said, most of the time I don't think bait's worth it, but sure, like there is always nuance to this. There's always times where you're going to be like, this is the scenario which breaks what Ryan said, and Ryan's an idiot because he hasn't seen this exact scenario right in front of me right now where it makes perfect sense, and obviously that's going to be the case, right? Everything depends on everything else that's going on. So like if you are going to bait, try and do it with stuff that like you don't care if it dies, right? So it's expendable, or it has the ability to reanimate, or it has a medic nearby which is going to revive it, or you're going to be able to bounce it into something that is more durable and it won't die, right? So do it with something like that where you're therefore not losing anything via doing this, because if you don't give up any kill up points or tack up points or anything like that, then sure, the bait might therefore be worth it. But I think my advice would be, rather than have like bait necessarily, I think what you want to do is set up something that your opponent is forced to interact with, right? So this is my opinion, is let's say if we take a bomb squig, for example, right? So you can put a bomb squig in such a position where your opponent is forced to kill that bomb squig, or the next turn eat the bomb squig going in and blowing itself up, right? And it's the same for any sort of like staging threat or whatever. It's like if you put something out there which is achieving a goal, be that a threat to your opponent, or it's achieving a mission requirement, a tack up requirement, maybe it's controlling an objective, maybe it's doing flank, maybe it's whatever, right? Like you're forcing your opponent to interact, because if they don't interact, they're going to lose VP. And now the calculus comes in, right? Because if they can look at it and they go, yeah, I'll just kill you later, it changes nothing to me. But like, or they go, actually, that's your melter gun guy, and if I don't interact with it, then next turn you're going to kill one of my guys or whatever it is. It forces them to interact. So melter gun guy is probably a bad example. I wouldn't suggest using melter gun as bait ever, but potentially you could have a model that you're happy to put out, because then when their leader moves out to kill that model, say, you then have the melter shot into them. So then they're in like this horrible situation. So like a demo guy is a good example. The demo guy could move out next turn and blow up the leader, like, or the leader goes out, kills the demo guy, but then eats a melter gun. So it's more about giving people these like no good choices rather than, I would say, baiting it out. Because if it's just a demo guy who's going to move there and he can't actually kill my leader, or he can't interact with my team in any way, then I'm not going to go and waste a model killing him, right? Like, I'm not going to switch to engage and shoot him to eat a melter gun because I lose nothing from it. But you know, on the flip side, is there a way that I can actually kill that model that you've given me and give me VP and deny a melter gun shot potentially, right? So I'm just saying that, like, I think the mentality of baiting maybe it's how I'm describing it, but like I would never describe it as baiting someone to do something. I personally would describe it more as giving your opponent a like an unwinnable problem, right? Like it's like they call it in chess, I think it's zugzwang, where it's like, or zugzwang, where you have no good moves, right? So it's like either you take the demo or you take this, and either way it's bad for you, right? Like that for me is a better play than just saying I want you to come out here and interact with this so that I will hopefully do something in future, because next thing you know he's going to flip to engage, kill your guy and pop a smoke grenade, and then suddenly your melter gun's useless or whatever it is, right? So that's my tactical tip. I think baiting isn't worth it, so try and force an action from your opponent rather than bait it. Hope that's useful. Okay, so finally, what I do every week is I give my patrons the opportunity to ask questions. I've got a whole list of patron priority questions now, which is really, really cool. So I'm just going to try and work my way through them, and I'll try and do anything that I think is relevant to the week and what's going on. And we talked about a lot of teams this week, so I've chosen this patron priority question, which is, with all the unique teams, what's the best way to approach a game when you don't know what the opposing team does? I think it's a great question, right? Because right now we are in like the biggest like possible amount of teams, or so it feels. And there's a lot of people that are going to be heading into the World Champs and all that sort of stuff, and they're going to have a whole bunch of teams that they don't know what they're doing, right? Because there's just so many, right? So I mean, I've played 6 games in the last 2 weeks, and there's 40 teams. So like, how on earth can you possibly play against every team? Like, if someone tells you they've played against every team multiple times, and bear in mind you probably need like 5 games for a data set, like that's a lot of games to be able to actually know every single matchup and that sort of stuff. So you're going to be going into almost all of your games, in my opinion, with an element of like unknown and having to try and figure it out, because with new tac ops, new teams, and having the broadest amount of teams, it's all playing differently, and the new missions, etc., new maps. There's loads of variants. So how do you approach a game like that? I think it's a great question. So firstly, I think there is a list of sort of standard questions that you can ask when you get to a table that's going to help frame the problem in your mind, right? So you want to understand the problem set that's been given to you, so you can actually start thinking about your game plan to solve that problem set. I'll run through a list of these now, but I'm not going to run through all of them. What I'll do is I'll just, on the Patreon, I'll just put a list of all the questions that I have that I usually think about, and then people can just pull them from there. But I'll run through some of them now, just so it's just so people can see the logic. So one of the first question you ask when you get down the table, what team are you playing? And they're going to say, oh, I'm playing, let's say, Deathwatch, right? You go, okay, brilliant. And even though I know what Deathwatch archetypes are, I'm going to still ask the same sort of questions. So like, oh, what archetypes are you? Right? And they're going to say, oh, I'm security and seek and destroy, right? And then at that point, you can, with your cards, if you have the cards, or if you have access to whatever means to read it, we'll talk about that in a second, you can then go through and you can be like, right, cool, I'll now look at the seek and destroy tac ops. I'll look at the security tac ops, because maybe that's not ones that you play with, or maybe it is something you're very familiar with, right? And you can then look at them and go, right, okay, what do I think is going to be good for this team? Like, where do I see them, running this game? Probably Martyrs for Deathwatch isn't an option. You can probably discount it, that sort of thing, right? So start understanding what their win condition is. What's your opponent's win condition, by understanding their archetypes. The next sort of questions that I'd ask them is like, how many activations are you? And they'll say, oh, I'm 5 activations. And you can say, do you have any like delay or group activations to change that? Because one of the things that people often don't consider is like, this is like for Phobos or whatever, is you say, oh yeah, I'm 6 activations. And it's like, okay, but actually I can delay an activation to be 7, right? And if you're playing against another elite player, that's a significant difference. That means I'm always going to have last activation if I want it, right? And that's huge. So same with Nemesis Claw and that sort of stuff, right? So asking how many activations are they? Do they have any delay or any group activations? Then you ask the sort of standard questions, which sort of let you understand the board side, because you're probably at that point you're going to roll off for initiative, and you're going to be making a decision, right, about board sides. So then you want to start asking questions about how they interact with terrain and movement, and that's going to let you understand staging and terrain options and what's available to you as a player. So when you're making that decision, assuming that you've won the roll off, and you get to make a decision here, right? You can ask, do you have access to Seek? Do you have access to Seek Light? Can you ignore obscurity? do you have any ways to alter your movement or my movement, right? Like, those are good questions, like just to get an immediate understanding of where the staging on the board is going to be, right? Because if your game plan is, oh yeah, I'm going to do a move dash 9 inches from my deployment zone to be able to reach, say, the center objective, and that's what I'm going to be able to do, and then your opponent says, oh yeah, here's an nanomine, you're -2, whatever, and then you go, oh right, okay, oh now I can't make the objective. Like, you need to know that when you're setting up your terrain and you're picking your equipment and you're deciding which side of the board to take, because maybe you can stage differently. You can have a model that's a bit closer, that's within 7 inches, or maybe it's actually you have a solution to be able to increase your ranges, whatever it needs to be, right? So understanding like that is going to be really important. Understanding where you can stage, because if they tell you, oh yeah, I've got like team-wide Seek Light, you go, oh right, okay, I probably don't want to be staging advantages. Or if they tell you they have no Seek Light, you can then look at the cover lines on the advantages and go, right, actually, I can be in this cover here, and I can't be shot, I can't be interacted with because my opponent doesn't have the tool to be able to interact with me. Therefore, that makes this side much better, right? So having that question at that point is going to be really, really important. And then as you're getting into the turning point itself, like I think generally like you want to have these questions when you're measuring out ranges and when you're understanding what models do, to just help you get an understanding of what you're up against, right? So like the example is things like, do you have a way to move outside your activation or in the strat phase? And your opponent might say, oh yeah, I have a strat phase dash, and you go, okay, right, so now I'm going to make the assumption that I'm going to lose initiative. So if I lose initiative, where does that model get me to? Or if I win initiative, where does that model get me to? And another one on that, this is probably just getting a bit beyond, but like an out of activation movement, like counteract is that, right? It's only 2 inches, but it is an out of activation movement. So a lot of elite players, I think, are sleeping on this at the moment because they're not considering the fact that like all of their models have out of activation movement, because they can all do a counteract, which then means in the following turning point they can then move further than they're going to do. So if you're threat ranging against them and you're not considering that counteract, you're going to be in a bad place. And then just like the standard questions like, do you have damage reduction or negations, like just a scratch or like that? Do you have a way to get around it? Do you have piercing? Do you have double parry, like fight for whatever it is, like pre-parry? Like these sorts of questions, like when you're looking at a model and you say this is a melee model, ask the questions that are relevant to a melee model, right? If it's a shooting model, ask questions that are relevant to a shooting model. So that might be whether it is like do you have lethal 5 or whatever it is, right? Or you can just say, can you tell me what that guy is armed with? And then if you want to, you can understand, like you can do a bit of calculation to figure out what the likelihood is of that model achieving the kill against your model. Is it worth the risk, essentially? So what I'll do is I'll make a full list of those questions. I'll try and like type it up in the next couple of days and just put that on Patreon, so people have access to that, because I think probably people will find that useful. But yeah, so then I've got just a few more bits to add on, because that's like the default answer, which is probably pretty easy. But the next thing is you're gonna want to use the Killteam app, right? So GW have given us some free rules, right? Not all the free rules, but they have given us some free rules. And one of the free rules that they do give us is all the team rules, right? Which is really, really useful, because there's so many teams and there's so many rules for each team. Like you cannot possibly keep all of it in your mind all at once, right? And when you ask those questions I said previously, these sort of standard questions you're going through, they're going to tell you, yeah, I have a ploy to be able to do this, or yeah, I have a data card ability to be able to do that. And usually, like for most teams, those abilities or those ploys have some caveat, they have some rider, they have something which restricts it. Maybe it's a range, maybe it's only works versus certain operative types, be that ready or whatever. You have to end within shadow, you can't be a valid target, whatever it is, right? There's some caveat, which means that it's not just I can do this and there's nothing you can do to stop it, right? So when you've had those questions, it's worth then just going and like opening up their rules and just checking through it, right? And there's loads of like downtime where your opponent's going to be thinking, and if you thought you'll move out already, then you can just be checking their rules. And I'm not saying checking their rules to be able to like catch them out and say, actually you can't do that. You didn't know that you can't do that. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is like within those caveats of the rules is a potential counter to that team's ability, right? So a good example is, let's say you're playing against mandrakes, right? and they have the ability to teleport across the board, right? But they have to not be a valid target, and they have to be within shadow. So that gives them like only a certain amount of areas where they can end up at the end of each turning point. And therefore, like if you position your models in such a way to cover off all those areas, they can't teleport into your backlines. They have to teleport in front of you, which is far easier to deal with than a model teleporting behind you, right? Sometimes it's going to be achievable, sometimes it's not going to be achievable. But the point being is that if you read the rule and understand that they have that caveat, you can then start looking for the counter and start trying to interact with it and go, right, okay, I now know that you need to do this, therefore I'm going to try and do this. For Canoptic Circle, almost all of it is to do with the matrix, right? So understand, like, okay, so that's where the matrix is. How do I try and interact with them outside of the matrix, where possible, or wherever it needs to be? So that would be my two sort of bits of advice. One is like start in your mind like a standard list of questions. Either have an actual list that you run through and you can just like tick them off as you go down, or just have like for more experienced players, you'll have it ingrained in your brain anyway. And then use the Killteam app to your advantage, right? So I think there is like it's such a useful tool to have access to free rules, that you should be using it, right? Like you're at a disadvantage if you don't have it open. Ideally, you want to get to the point in your own preparation where you don't need to look at your own Killteam rules. You can just have your opponent's rules, right? Because I think that's far more likely a scenario is you don't need to, like, you can be more familiar with your own team to the point where you don't actually need to look at them. You can just be like, yep, cool, I know my own stuff, but what I don't know is my opponent's stuff. And I'm, when they say, oh, this is where my Dirge Maw is going to go, open up your phone, go onto the data card. What does the Dirge Maw do? Oh, that's that guy. And that might mean that you don't necessarily telegraph the option to it. Or, if you don't want to do that, default to it's a cooperative game, just ask your opponent, hey, what does a Dirge Maw do? Does he have Seek Light? Like, does he have ability to ignore obscurity? Okay, right, I'll use a Smoke Grenade. Right, like that kind of thing. What's his charge range? Like, do you have a way to modify that? Oh, you can move outside your activation? Okay, that's good to know. Oh, you can ignore terrain? Oh, okay, that's good to know. Right, so like those kind of things is going to help you be able to get around those moments where you don't necessarily know what a team does. So yeah, that is the Patreon priority question finished. Now I'm just going to end this Metawatch episode just talking about, because we talked about free rules quite a lot there, and I want to talk about Battlecit. So I'm not surprised to see that Battlekit has had GW essentially say you need to shut down, but I am sad because like realistically, like GW is so close to greatness, I think, with Killteam, of the digital rules like epiphany moment where everyone can just have access to the rules that they want, and we can then just play a game and quickly reference stuff. And you see it all the time when you're playing games where people are trying to read a rule or trying to find a rule and they have to get the core rule book out because it's not available digitally. They're trying to like look through it and all that sort of stuff. And then you go on Battlekit and within 2 seconds you just type the rule in and it's right there and it's in your face. Like for ease of player use, like why that isn't something that we can have as a community is really frustrating. And I know the amount of effort and work that's gone into it from the guys who are doing it. I'm deliberately trying to avoid doing names and stuff. I don't want to get into any legal issues or whatever like that. But I just know that they've put so much effort and heart and soul into it, and I think it's really like all to such good like causes as well. It's not to make money. It's not trying to like get anything off GW. I think most people who use it have probably all bought the core rules anyway. I just think it's really sad that like we're probably going to lose that. And I hope that GW see this and go, right, there is a real demand here, like for free rules, essentially. I get that it doesn't have to be the cards and the approved ops, like, and there's a little bit of a challenge there, but like particularly for the core rules and stuff like that, I'm like, sure that should be an option. And like, I feel like if the approved ops and the core rules had a code in the back of it where you type that code into your app and then it unlocked it, right? So it's a one-use code, single-use item. You get your box, you open it, you type the code in, you're good to go. You have the physical book as well if you want that. I think that would work for most people. I'm frustrated to see that that's like not a thing. I am sad to see it going, so previous edition we didn't have any digital rules, right? So all the time I was using Wahapedia because that's where all the rules were, and it was the way to do what I just talked about. Like the only option was Wahapedia, right? In previous editions, so everyone did it, right? And now GW has brought out all the data cards on an app, and do you know what everyone does? They all use the GW product, right? So like, people will use your product if you let them use the product, right? But when you don't give people the option, then people will do the thing that's best for the community and the workaround. So it is a shame. I totally understand why GW do it. They have to protect their IP. I get that. They have to protect their sales. I understand that too. So this is like more of a plea from me to GW. It's like, cool. You can see there's a demand there. Now you can actually release the stress of the community having to do it because you can fill that gap. And there's ways you can do it where you still make money. And I think that Battlekit and those sorts of products, I think they are an amazing thing for the community, for accessibility and that sort of stuff, and getting people to be able to get into the game and speed up games as well, quickly being able to find a rule rather than trying to find in a rule book that's probably changed because there's been a core rule update and it's not included, and now you have to find the core rule in the rule book, then you have to find the errata, and the errata is included for free but the core rule book isn't. You know what I mean? It's just that's not helpful for anyone. Whereas if it's all in one place and you just find it, why can't we have that? I don't want to touch on it for too long because it's not really what Metawatch is about. But I just thought it was worthy of note because it's such a big thing in the community, I believe. So that is the end of this episode. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, consider throwing us a like. As I said, if you enjoyed the tactical tip, and you're not a subscriber, then maybe you can subscribe. If you want to get access to all the stuff that the patrons get access to, which is the patron priority questions each week, some of those little ad bits that I throw in, like little tables for kill percentages or tactical tips, whatever it is, you can join the Patreon for a little £3 a month. That really does help support the channel because that's pretty much the only thing that keeps it going. And I'm trying new things now, so I need to upgrade the webcam, I think, because this is a bit low quality. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it and it's been useful. Let me know what you think about this new format with the sort of side-by-side screen, or if you just want to see my big face going and chatting more often. Cool, that is it. And thank you again to Potential Plastic Ops, Small Eyes and Gunfire for all of the stats data that you've seen today. I can only do that by someone else putting in a whole bunch of really hard work for the community, which is massively appreciated. And thank you to all the TOs continuing to run tournaments in the UK that's getting so many people out there and playing the game, right, which is awesome to see. So with all that said, take it easy and I'll see you next time.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.